Everybody has some, but are you growing it or is it not growing? That is the big question today. We have a fantastic author, Dan Allen. And Dan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. Yeah, it's a great sunny day, and I'm just glad to be here with everybody.
I love this topic. This is a very different topic than I'm used to. Not because I don't like money, because, hey, money opens up a lot of doors in life. It's great to have. Of course, Jason Lowe and Richard Canfield are dear friends. I think this is the, I don't know, third, fourth book we've published with them, but this one's unique. So if somebody were to meet you and say, hey, Dan, I heard you just published a book, what would they say? What would you say this book is about?
Yeah, really, it's about building capital. So what most people don't realize is that money flowing through their hands every day of their life, and this book just shows them a way to actually take some of that money that's flowing through their hands and create even more of it. And so when people ask
Mm.
me that question, it's about how do we create more money?
That's great. I see on the cover here, it's really a lot of the farmer world. You know, you got the wheat, you got the horse, you got the grain. I live in Ohio, so man, that looks very familiar when I go out cycling. But why specifically is this slanted toward farming? I know that's kind of your specialty.
Yeah, it's one of those, key focus areas for myself. I was blessed to grow up on a farm, so I got to experience that life. It's something that, I've never lost sight of. Farming, to me, I think it was just this last week, it was a national day to celebrate farmers, and I don't think we do enough to support our farmers and the farming community. And I thought, well, this would just be a good way to help farmers because we all know how much pressure they have on them to produce, to keep, continue to be solvent and to grow their business and then to pass it on to the next generation. I think that's one of the biggest things I get from farmers is like they think about legacy. How do I keep the farm in the family? And so if you have more access to capital, that's just going to help you do that.
What are the, I mean, I'm not asking you to like tell me the stats if you don't know them, but this is kind of a common thing that people lose the farm, if you will?
Yeah, it's one of the statistics that you look into as you've asked farmers who who wants their goals typically are is to pass the farm on to the next generation, but very few of them have actually gone through the steps to do that. So that's one thing we're hoping to do with this book is like give them a pathway to start thinking about what is it they need to do to be able to be in the right position to pass their farm on to the next generation. It's not a the farms today, Kary, I'm sure you know this, they're becoming bigger and bigger all the time, more
Really?
complex. Yeah, more complex. It's really a challenge for those families that are practicing and taking part in that business just to keep it going, and then to think about all the things you need to think about. And yeah, it's not a simple task. It takes time and effort to be able to structure things in a way that it's going to, I guess there's two ways to look at it. You can pass it on, but you want to pass it on in a way that works best so that the farm stays intact. And that's what I'll hear from farmers is like, I want to make sure this farm stays intact as it goes from generation to generation.
I think a lot of people take farming and farmers for granted. I mean, I do. I'll just be honest, little confession here, but I mean, you just go to your fridge and you go to your freezer and you think, okay, I'm just going to grab something, right? And I mean,
Yep.
I've even met some people. I don't want to embarrass anybody, but I've met some people. They do some studies where I'm not gonna rip on anybody, but they don't even know how like chicken comes. You know, I mean, young kids start thinking like, wait, a chicken is actually, you mean the thing I just ate is actually on a farm? Like, there's a disconnect. And do you think
There
that
is.
that leads to some of the underappreciation that we have?
Yeah, I think that's well said, Kary, because you think about how geographically and where people live now, a lot of people grow up in big cities, and
Right.
they don't get access to, what I enjoyed as a child growing up, raising chickens, raising different animals like that and really understanding it. So they are very familiar with walking into grocery stores and seeing
Right.
stuff on a shelf, and that's where it comes from. And
Yep.
so really the backbone of our world basically is we have to feed the people.
Yep.
Somebody has to feed the people. And so when you think about what farmers do, yeah, it's a tough task they have out there to generate, given all the pressures that are against them, from political to weather, the list goes on and on. But
Mm.
they're back there working to produce food. And without that, like I think one of the things I said in the last few days, just on social media was, I thank the farmers for the hard work they do because it makes it easier for me because I can go to
Ooh.
my fridge. So
Yeah.
that's what I appreciate. There's the work they do behind the scenes.
And all you need to do is hop in an airplane. I mean, I'm blown away. I literally, I've been flying a lot lately, and I'm blown away when I look out my window and I think all I see is farms. Like, I mean, you don't see many cities when you're flying. You see a couple, and then you see just massive farms here in the U.S. and even undeveloped land. So let's talk about this. If people say, I know a farmer, I am a farmer, why would they read your book?
Yeah, that's a great question. So why would somebody read the book? It's really, to help them see something they may not have seen before. So like I was saying before, farmers deal with all kinds of pressures, and one of them is money.
Mm.
So any business owner would understand that, they need capital to grow their business. Farmers, what I find, farmers get that aspect really well.
Mm.
They realize they have to have access to capital to produce what they produce. And
Yeah.
without that, there's a real problem. And so they're used to dealing with capital. They're used to going to banks, to whatever source of finance they can find, and setting that up so that they can put their crops in, or whatever it is they do, whether they're ranching with cattle or whatever that may be. They still need access to capital. So when people ask me that question, I go, so what would it feel like? What would it look like if you could start over time to gain more and more access to capital that you control and not
Mm.
someone else?
Yeah, because we think a car is expensive, and all of a sudden you think, right? I mean, I've known a few farmers,
Yeah,
and you think, you see that machine back there? Guess how much that thing costs? And you're like, oh my, right? I mean, and then you have
it's
multiple machines.
oh yeah, you're right. It's like, again, combines. Like, so people, if they've been out in the country driving around, they might see harvest taking place
Sure.
where,
It's happening
some
right
farm,
now.
yeah, some farms will be running like 7 or 8 what they call combines, which are harvesters, and they're really just helping them take that cash crop off. And in Canada here, I know, I suspect they're cheaper in the US because of the difference in our dollars, but it's $1 million for a lot of those combines.
Oh my.
Yeah,
Oh my.
yeah,
That is crazy. So I guess the question is, like, how do, a lot of times it's a thankless job. We're of course talking today about how grateful we are, but you're part of this Ascendant Financial. What, I guess, how does this relate? Because Jason Lowe and Richard Canfield, we love those guys.
yeah.
Um, we've done a lot with them, but like, how does this relate to farming? And do you guys specialize in farmers, or how does this all work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, we don't just specialize in farmers. We have a lot of farmers as clients, but we help, people that are just earning an income and a job. We help other business owners because the principles are the same. Farming is a business.
Hmm.
And so they, are a great part of our community. They have a big need for capital. And so farmer, very capital intense. Not as much labor intense as it used to be. Like you used to have more people to do it. Now they got bigger equipment, but all that stuff comes at a cost, and it's a capital cost. So yes, we work with all kinds of people across North America. And one of my favorite people to work with is farmers. And I've just been blessed to have some really good farmers who are clients. And yeah, I just enjoy having that conversation because it takes me back to my roots.
So good. You can see my screen, by the way, right?
I can, yes.
Yeah. As I've met these guys, I mean, they got this whole infinite banking concept, but is that part of the secret that is in the book? This concept of like, hey, you don't have to go to banks, pay high interest, lose control. Like there is another way.
That's exactly right. So, when you think about the originator of the whole concept, Nelson Nash, who's no longer with us, but what he just discovered was that there is a different way to do it, where you could practice, banking at the you and me level. So where we can have control. And he discovered if you do that over time, everything that you do is enhanced. It doesn't mean that if you're a farmer, you still can't be successful without implementing this concept. All this concept does is gives you more control. And with control comes things like peace of mind. And those are important things to have. And, and over time, you just get more and more access to capital that you control versus going to some financial institution just to get access to the money you need. So that's, this book, and I said it at some point, the book I wrote wasn't to replace what Nelson put in his book. It's just to give a different view of the same idea.
Yeah. I like this word control. I'm not going to lie. I do like it because I feel like in our world today, now more than ever, I mean, true for Canada, probably true it's definitely true in the US, but we feel so out of control. Like I don't know what's happening in Washington, D.C. here. You don't know what's happening in your place. And it's like so much of our life is reactionary to other people's decision making that this book makes so much sense. You don't want success is reducing the variables.
Right.
I don't know if this is going to happen, that's going to happen. And I'm a faith guy. So, I believe in God and I believe that God has true control, but it's like, you know what? I also like when I can have some control too, and yeah, that can be a wrong thing where we are control freaks, but the opposite is like, I don't care, whatever happens. That's probably pretty tough to run a farm when you have multiple creatures dependent on you, not to mention your family. It's probably not a good idea to be laissez-faire. What do you think?
I agree. Yeah, I agree. It's, like you said, there's so many things in life we can't control.
Yeah.
That, this isn't, even if we implement anything out there that's available to us, we're still the weather's still going to be the weather. We can't control that. Our governments are still going to do what our governments are going to do. And, so you think about that, that is a huge impact to us. But if we can just start to get more control of one element,
yes,
that we depend on, it just reduces the stress that comes with the rest of it. And so, yeah, that's what I believe. And I see with the clients I work with, as they start to gain more control, they just, they just feel better about it. And that's what that was one of the things I always wanted to do, is to help people. Because that's, I'm a kind of a believer, the good Lord put us on earth to make a difference for others.
That's right. Yeah. I know we got a little bit of time left. Do you have any stories? Like, I think it'd be kind of cool for people who aren't farmers to hear some of these stories, but has there been you don't have to tell their name or anything, but like, has there been any types of families or situations where maybe, they thought this, but then they applied the principles and it allowed new opportunities or anything like that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Kary. Appreciate you asking it. So yeah, no, I think of families that I've worked with. And so one of the things that I've been able to be fortunate enough to see and have happen with some of the people I've been working with is they end up with timelines that they're always focused on. And so for farmers in particular, there's going to be a certain period of time where they have to, typically they would sell their crop or they would sell their livestock at this point because they had to meet certain commitments they had.
Wow.
So I've seen the difference there where they build up access to capital that they can control. And then if they find out and they realize that, hey, if I wait a period of time longer, then I will get a better price for my crop or I'll get a better price for my livestock. And with the dynamics of the marketing, like farmers are so good at marketing now because they have to be. They're watching the market. They understand the market. They know that this period of time will be better if I can sell my crop at this day versus, the time the bank's demanding my loan. So that's what I've seen. It gives them that flexibility. It takes some time to get there where they have more and more of that control. But as people start to see that, Kary, they just go, wow, that made a real difference. I can now market when I want to versus when I feel the pressure because I have to make this payment. And so that's the biggest thing I've seen so far.
Richard and Jason, we hang out with this guy named Dan Sullivan, strategic coach. You probably heard of him.
I have, yes.
Yeah. But he talks about becoming the buyer and not the seller. And that's exactly what I hear you saying. It's instead of saying, oh my gosh, we're short on money, we have to sell now, please take our crops at a much lower rate. Now you can come with confidence and say, hey, what price do you think you can offer today? That's not really what we were looking for. We're gonna wait. All of a sudden you become the buyer. The buyer's the one who can walk in any deal. And so that's pretty powerful. I think that's a great situation.
Yep.
What about, is this your first book you ever
It is.
published? Wow. Okay. So maybe share with people, even though you know this stuff, you're one of the lead advisors, even though you kind of like know it in your head, what about the book process now has excited you? Like, in other words, the ability to hand somebody something to read, or like what has the process kind of created in you?
Yeah, because it is my first book, it's the first experience I've got to be, with people where, where you do a bit of a on-stage live presentation and there's audience. And part of it is, we're talking about elements of the book and we have the book there. And then just to be able to give that book to someone and to see them take that, be able to, even what I really found first time ever, right? You're signing it. Somebody wants you to sign the book. And I just
go,
that was quite humbling at that point because it's something that I've been blessed to learn. And I think we all learn from others. That's what I found. It's like, you think about the people that have come into your life that have made a difference. For me, a lot of them are in this world of the infinite banking world. One was Nelson. I was blessed to meet him a few times, and not realistically, he changed my life just because of the influence he had on me. So as I get out there and I'm able to, now use this book as just a way for people to see that, you can grow access to your own capital. And it's not as difficult as people make it and think it might be. It's really a simple process. And that's what I love doing, sharing that with them and just giving them information that they can take away and read and ask questions about, because that's all we do is coach. We coach people on how they could do this. They get to decide if they want to do it, but we just coach them.
This book sounds so good. I got to ask the question, and maybe the answer is no. But would someone who's not a farmer, because again, we got a lot of people watching this, a lot of people are going to be watching the replay. It sounds really interesting. Would people who aren't farmers also find it helpful?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I have a number of clients who obviously aren't farmers, and some of them have got the book. So one I thought of is a chiropractor, and he got the book, and he said, I read the book down, and now I just want to do more. I want to build more access to capital for my business and for my
Wow,
family. So it's very relatable.
that's
People
cool.
that read it, I've got, doctor clients. I've sent the book to the doctors. They've
Wow.
they've appreciated. They're business owners. They're doing something different, but they're business owners, and and I always think about one thing that I've learned as I've done this, Kary, is that, we all need access to money. And
Mm,
how long are we going to need access to money? Well, for as long as the good Lord, keeps us on earth. So everybody's looking for ways to, do more with their money. So I
mm,
think it's very relatable to every walk. Every person in life can take something out of this book, because most people can relate to some of the stories that are in there. I put some in there that aren't related to farming.
mm.
I, to- I told a little story about how my wife ended up with Lyme's disease. And, because I had built up access to capital, and because we had a lot of costs that didn't fit within any, medical plan we had, it just gave me peace as I went through that situation in life. So there's lots of relatable stories in the book, not just
Mm.
related to farming.
This is exciting. So, folks, check them out. The actual company, Ascendant Financial. We've got the website. We're dropping it all throughout the channel here, but ascendantfinancial.com. The book is fantastic. It's for anybody who uh, really has the desire to grow their own capital. And like you just said, Lyme's disease, wow, never would have hoped for that, never would have wanted that. And you didn't have to be, destitute. So I think that this is the whole point of the book, folks. And it was just a blast, Dan, to work with you. Um,
Likewise.
Honored to be your publisher, and keep changing lives, man. And I got even a more respect for farmers after today.
Well, I appreciate that, Kary, and it's been a real good experience to work with your team, and I just appreciate everything you did to help us get this book ready to be out there to help people change their life.
It's got a lot of reviews already, folks. Just came out, and a lot of people are diving in and finding awesome clarity. So thanks, Dan, for being here, and tell my friends Jason and Richard hello as well.
I will do that. Thanks again,
Okay.
Kary.
See you later, folks. Get the book. Take care.